Hello everyone and welcome back to the Versatories Gaming channel. Today we will be going through the top 5 dinosaurs for getting started in realism. Now, these are my own personal opinion and what I have experienced through my time learning realism. I thought a good way of doing this would be to take the standard tiers of low, mid, high and apex plus 1 at random to give a range of dinosaurs to play, both herbivore and carnivore. Each will have their own benefits and drawbacks. This list could be completely different depending on different Realism Server profiles, of course. However, I will be taking into account generalizations in regards to this list. Before we get into this, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel and like the video. Both help the channel massively with increasing its exposure to new viewers, thus increasing the channel itself. But without further ado, let's begin. Let's begin down in low tier. And to be honest, any low tiers could have made this list. But I personally started with Deinonychus in realism, and as such, this will be the first dinosaur on the list. Deinonychus is a good beginning dinosaur for a multitude of reasons. Firstly, we'll talk about its combat prowess. While it's not a strong dinosaur on its own, it is useful for learning realistic pack hunting dynamics. When to attack, analysing the strength of prey, and how to follow the lead of the pack in how they wish the fight to pan out. Secondly, as alluded to already, Deinonychus is a pack dinosaur. They live in groups known in many servers as clans. By taking a nest and joining a Deinonychus pack, you'll meet and interact with many other realism players who are more than happy to show you the ropes of playing not just Deinonychus but realism in general. I started in realism by being nested into the Northern Lights clan. If it weren't for their teachings and at times hand-holding when I was new, I would never have grown within realism as fast as I did and go on to become an owner of Archaeos Archipelago Realism. I have included Leighton Venatrix in this section because they have a very similar playstyle to Deinonychus, and it felt disingenuous to only include Deinon here. Moving into mid-tier, there were a few options I could have put here. Concavinator and Metricanthosaurus were both considered, but in the end I decided to stick with Kentrosaurus. The reason I stuck with Kentrosaurus is despite their herding ability, they are very adept at surviving as a solo, fighting off high tiers with relative ease, especially in a realism combat setting. Most Kentrosaurus profiles also tend to be wrote with a high aggression personality, allowing a new player to realism to transition a little bit easier from a PvP mindset to that of a realism mindset. In my experience, PvP players looking to make the transition to realism have a hard time with the slower style of play and combat. Kentrosaurus allows for a bit more of a middle ground between both styles, allowing the player to slowly introduce themselves to the slower style of realism. High tier yet again had a few options I could go with, especially with some of the mods that are around, such as Quetzalcoatlus. Other dinosaurs such as Albertoceratops, Stegosaurus and Allosaurus could all have easily been picked here over Daspletosaurus. So why exactly did I choose Daspletosaurus over these other dinosaurs? Well, it's simple. Daspletosaurus profiles tend to lean towards cannibalism, especially of their offspring. This is an ideal place for a new realism player to flex into some of the more intricate behaviours within realism. Cannibalism isn't a common feature in most profiles because it's a tough thing to do well and realistically. However, by nesting into a group, it would be good experience for the new player to witness. Daspletosaurus also tend to hold territories, something the other two on this list are less apt at doing. This will teach the new realism player how to patrol the territory they have chosen for themselves, with the occasional threatening displays that come with defending it. Daspletosaurus tend to be a little bit more on the tanky side when compared with other high tier dinosaurs such as Allosaurus and Quetzalcoatlus, so it allows for a little more mistakes while learning the combat style of realism without being punished harshly for it. I will note, however, that I don't believe DASP is easier to play than the two I've spoken about already in this video. I pondered the Apex tier heavily before even deciding to include it in this video. Apex tiers played poorly in a realism ecosystem have the capability to destroy the entire ecosystem. I have seen this happen across multiple servers. It's also the reason we at Archaos added the application system for Apexes. But as this video is to cover as many realism servers as possible, I felt that doing an Apex tier would be ideal. So, why did I choose Rex? I could have chosen Neo Triceratops, or one of the modded Apexes such as Ankylosaurus, Gigantosauros, or Therizinosaurus. But Tyrannosaurus Rex has the media attention, and so would be played more by most people in my opinion. With this in mind, I looked over a few Rex profiles within multiple realism servers, and one major thing I noticed in each of them is the ambushing trait, and mostly solo gameplay. This to me indicates a nice opening to the Apex tier. With Rex being a slow moving forest ambushing kind of predator, it can be very hard to actually catch your prey, and will probably rely on burrows and corpses 75% of the time. Introducing a new realism player to this much slower style of gameplay will be useful in setting the tone of how realism works, and that burrows or corpses are not to be scoffed at. They can be the difference between survival and death. While yes, you are more likely to make mistakes with solo play, playing a dinosaur with this strength and tankiness, you're more likely to survive any major mistakes and don't have to worry so much about hunting restrictions that you get with smaller profiles. Although do be warned, I've only included this tier so we didn't leave out Apex creatures. It would be more prudent in my opinion to start with a low or mid tier before transitioning to Apex. Some servers do serve harsher sanctions for rule breaking on an Apex, so this is something to keep in mind. What would a top 5 list for realism be without, in my opinion, the best dinosaur to learn realism with? Iguanodon. This high tier dinosaur has it all when it comes to learning realism, especially if you can get nested into a herd. It's tanky, packs a punch in combat, has intricate herding systems, and is a very popular dinosaur that is a staple of 90% of realism servers. In these herds you'll find realism players of all levels, from beginner to expert, a perfect concoction needed to learn realism, and Iguanodon creates it with ease. More experienced realism players teach the beginner members of the group, correcting unrealistic behaviour in a safe and friendly environment. I have never been part of a toxic or nasty Iguanodon herd. It has always been good vibes and mutually enjoyable fun for all. Iguanodon as a dinosaur is the perfect blend of aggression, defensive behaviour, offspring raising, migratory behaviour, male dominance fighting, better known as bullfighting, and mating preferences. Being unafraid of most predators besides those in Apex tier, Iguanodon has cemented its place as a realism legend. If you are serious about learning as much as you can about realism behaviours, join an Iguanodon herd. And that rounds off my top 5 dinosaurs for getting started in realism. I realise not everyone will agree with these, but I've tried to give a rounded list of dinosaurs from both herbivorous and carnivorous diets that allow new realism players a path to take whichever diet they prefer. If you have enjoyed watching this and feel confident at learning realism, a good place to start is on realism servers such as Archaos Archipelago Realism, Carnage Realism, and Primordial Tyrants Realism. But that does bring this video to a close. If you have enjoyed it, please drop a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Finally, comment down below and let me know what more realism videos you would like to see.